I just had a lot of energy and conviction that I was going to overcome this. I started in 1986 at EF Hutton, and my goal was, after getting the job, which I was thrilled to get, was to work harder than any single human being at that firm, because I knew I probably wasn't the smartest guy there, and I didn't have some of the advantages of relationships and other things that other people did. But I knew I could work harder than everybody else, and I just put my head down and worked hard, and that was how I got through about the first 10 years of my career. But you can't do that forever. You need to really focus on what your goals are and how you're going to accomplish them, and how everything kind of fits into that matrix.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow? Good leaders know how to get the work done. Great leaders know how to evolve as work changes, and they really are ahead of the curve. I have the joy of talking to so many founders about how they get from A to Z. I look at all of the steps in between. I get to look back at all of the inflection points that really shape who they are and who they become. It's really a pleasure to be able to have so many conversations with founders, CEOs of fast growth companies. This is what I love doing. Today, we look at the ever-evolving leader. Evolving as a leader isn't just something that you take, for granted. It's something that you really are intentional about. Evolving as a leader doesn't just happen because you look back and say, oh, well, I'm different than I was before. It's because you are driven. You are really looking to squeeze every bit of juice out of the moment, out of the opportunity you have in front of you. And that means you have to be the best leader you can be for your people. Today, we look at some central aspects of being the best leader you can be. And in fact, evolving as the leader that your company really deserves. When you think about what is next for you, I want to make sure you know that this podcast is here to serve you. And our special guest is here to serve you with this conversation on evolving leaders. The ever-evolving leader is, this concept was really come out of just what I felt and listening to this interview with Todd Walsh. He is the founder of Alpha Cube Investments. They have a portfolio that's puts them in a special category amongst their peers, and they're competing above their weight class. Inside this, you'll know what I mean by that when Todd explains what his big mission and goal for the business is, how he gets his people aligned around it, and how he's looked at leadership and how he's evolved over time. And all of this is jam-packed inside this episode for you. When you think about your next step as a leader, hopefully you have a very clear picture of how you want to evolve, and you're very intentional about that. But for some reason, if you just want to just put your head down and get the work done, but people aren't rallying to the cause, they're not taking responsibility, there's less accountability than you think the company deserves, it's because you're probably not leading them the right way. I have to be the direct person here in saying you could be a better leader. And if you want to know what your next steps are, make sure you reach out to me, genehammett.com, and find Start Your Journey. I'd love to help you become an extraordinary leader. There's a lot of tools we have. There's sometimes free content that you can take, but it starts with a conversation with me and you. If you think you're a fit there, just go to startyourjourney at genehammett.com. Now here's the interview with Todd. Todd, how are you?
I'm doing great, Gene.
Well, excited to have you on the show.
Happy to be here.
Tell us a little bit about Alpha Cubed Investments.
So Alpha Cubed Investments is a registered investment advisory firm. We were founded in 2011, started with about 80 million, and we are happy to say we're at about 1.8, 1.85 billion today, depending on market conditions. We're a little bit of a rare breed. We manage individual stocks and bonds. We don't farm out the management. We do our own management using a three-step process: fundamental analysis, technical analysis, and then risk management.
Perfect. Well, we're not going to talk about investment. We're not going to talk about crypto here today. We're going to talk about leadership that helped you get to where you are as a company. How many employees do you have, Todd?
I have about 30.
So when we did some research on your company and the background, you had said that mindset was a big part of being a strong leader. What do you think mindset, the role it plays in leadership?
In this business specifically, and I think in most businesses, there's a wall of just stuff and day-to-day things coming at all of us that run companies. And it's really important to look at everything through the prism of what the biggest goal is, or the biggest couple of goals don't get, beyond 2, 3, 4. But we want to look at everything through the prism of, what's going to get us to our bigger picture goal. There's always going to be a wall, a mountain of things coming at you in the middle of the day, and you got to deal with that, pass it off to someone else, or however you're going to handle that. But you can't lose sight of where are you trying to go as an organization, because you'll get sucked into so many different directions that if you don't stay completely goal focused, it's not going to work.
When you are working on your own mindset, how do you do that? Do you have a coach or mentor, or do you have someone else that you talk to about these things?
Yeah, I have a great mentor. It's called the School of Hard Knocks and Getting Your Face Smashed In. So I came from kind of a, difficult background. We're in welfare when I was a kid. I didn't have much mentoring as I talked to you as a younger person. And I just had a lot of energy and conviction that I was going to overcome this. I started in 1986 at EF Hutton. And my goal was, after getting the job, which I was thrilled to get it, was to work harder than any single human being at that firm, because I knew I probably wasn't the smartest guy there. And I, didn't have some of the advantages of relationships and other things that other people did. But I knew I could work harder than everybody else. And I just put my head down and worked hard. And that was how I got through about the first 10 years of my career. But you can't do that forever. You need to really focus on, what your goals are and how you're going to accomplish them, and how everything kind of fits into that matrix.
You've mentioned goals quite a bit through this. Do you have a different way to look at goals than the traditional SMART goals, or have you found that's what works for you?
So I wouldn't say I'm up to date with the latest thinking on goal setting and how that works. I'm pretty insular in the way I look at things. I just know that we want to be recognized as one of the best and most successful investment management firms in the United States. So we compete against firms that manage 20 billion, 50 billion, 100 billion, and we compete incredibly effectively against them. So our goal is to continue to win on that stage. So I look at everything through that prism. What's going to help us be the most successful? What's going to help us win at the most organic, individual, case-by-case level? Because I know if we do that, we'll hit our goal of continuing to compete well against our big competitors. And I only bring that up because if you're managing $50 billion, you have this magical thing called money, revenue, that you can throw at the problem. And sometimes it astonishes me, because if I was running a $50 or $100 million company, I wouldn't let anybody compete with me. I would literally stomp out the competition, just because you'd have so many resources to do it. So I just think it's amazing that we're in this position, that we get to compete so effectively. But again, we have the freedom of not managing $100 billion and being able to focus on the niche where we want to compete. So that is an advantage.
Todd, you have talked about the goals and how you see this. How do you get your employees to accept that goal as one of their own, and really feel a sense of ownership in the goal of being one of the best recognized companies in this category?
That is one of the $800,000 questions, because it's something I've had to and continue to learn from an evolutionary standpoint. Just because you're excited about something doesn't mean anybody else is going to be excited about it. And what I've tried to learn to do is, and I have to get better at this over time, and I'm aware that this is important, is to really meet people where they're at. Any organization beyond 1 or 2 people, you've got a bunch of people who have a different set of priorities, different things going on in their life, things you probably don't know about. And if you start ramming down a specific vision of where you want to end up without being empathetic and sensitive to what may be going on with them or what their skill set is, you're never going to accomplish anything. So I think one of the most effective skills of a leader is obviously be on point. Obviously, make the sacrifice and make it clear that you're making the sacrifice, but don't just expect other people to make it. You have to connect with each single person on your team as the important and intrinsically special individual that they are. And if you're not willing to do that, you're never going to get the buy-in that you need, or the buy-in that you think you have, because you're not going to have it. It's an ongoing issue. You always have to continue at it forever.
Now, Todd just said something I want to put a spotlight on for you. He said, meet people where they are. This has so much to do with how you lead people. You want to make sure that you look at each person individually. You want to understand their individual goals. You want to look at their individual capabilities, strengths, weaknesses. Each person is unique, and your job is to meet them where they are. Now, how do you do this as you scale? Well, hopefully you're building leaders that will help you do this as the company moves to the next level. And as you add employees, you want to make sure they have a strong foundation of understanding what meet people where they are really is. And you are the leader to lead by example. I shared share this with you because I want to make sure you truly understand that you may not be able to connect with each employee as you get to 100 employees or 200 employees and beyond. But right now, when your company is where it is, most likely you're making excuses for not treating people individually, having individual conversations. You don't have time for it. The only reason why you don't have time for it is because you are being really bombarded by all the trivial stuff each day. And you want to make sure you step back and become the visionary leader that this company needs, and that you understand that your job is to make sure people are there to carry out the mission beyond you. Not just do the work you say to do, but be leaders in their own right. And that is your job as the leader. Back to Todd. I want to go a little bit deeper with that, Todd, because it's one thing to say, meet people where they are, but how do you actually do this? What do we see inside your one-on-one meetings or your team meetings that'll let us know that you're meeting people where they are at that moment?
Again, this is an evolutionary thing that, I continue to work at. So I check myself when I'm talking to every individual. I have kind of a checklist I run through in my head, and I ask myself where do I think they're at, and then I try and ask probing questions to make sure that I'm on point with that. How is this fitting in with you? Are you comfortable with your assignment? Are you comfortable with the task at hand? Are you comfortable with the goals that we have? Is this the other thing? I try and make sure that everyone here knows that they're building a career. So there's an element of permanence and buy-in that I want to see from everybody on the team. And if I'm not seeing that, and if I'm not getting that kind of good feedback that they do feel like they're building a long-term career here, I know I'm missing the mark and I got to start over and figure it out. That's just as a quick aside. In some of our partners and competitors, I see them losing top talent, and everybody knows it's hard to hire great talent. But what's even worse is when you've got great talent, they decide to leave, right? That's probably the absolute worst case situation. And I see it all over, the competitors that I work with. And so it's why I really try and stay focused on, making sure I'm meeting the career goals of the individual people that I work with here.
I talk a lot about these interviews about how do you create a place where people don't want to leave from. But, one of the factors of that is giving them that long-term career place, giving them the skills and the experience of this. I know when I was a young employee working in corporate America, I was hungry for experience and skills, but I didn't feel like my bosses really paid attention to what I was hungry for. And so they just told me to do my work and pushed it aside. But I think today's leaders really are more tuned in with what does it take to keep people engaged around what they're doing. So that's what you're trying to say. Is that fair?
Yeah. And I think another component of that is the concept of keeping the firm as flat as possible, as opposed to hierarchical and vertical. As firms get bigger, it's really easy to fall into the trap creating verticals in the firm. But I've seen that even in our own case, where you have individuals wanting to develop their own sort of little power areas and control areas, and it's not healthy. And as much as anyone can do to flatten the nature of the firm, I think better. It's obviously a struggle. In our business specifically, we have a saying, when you're running $100 million, that's one kind of firm. When you're at 250, that's another kind of firm. At 500, you're another kind of firm. At $1 billion, another 2.5, 5 billion, 10 billion. So there's definite things that have to happen. You can't run a $20 billion firm and have it be completely flat and expect everybody to have the same experience they're going to have at a $500 million firm. But that doesn't mean you can't strive to have that be the goal. And I think it's important.
Well, Todd, I appreciate you giving us those looks at your personal business and the way you've seen leadership. I want to ask you just a couple more questions. We came here to talk about mindset, and you talked about the School of Hard Knocks. If you see this as so important, what are you doing to make sure your mindset continues to evolve and upgrade as the company grows, as market shifts and all this stuff? What do you do personally?
I think it's just so deeply ingrained in me. Not having a lot of abundance as a young person. I had to appeal my way into UCLA, fight for everything I had. I would meal plan on Sunday nights, make the whole week's meals out. I don't think that's going to be an issue for me, but I think it's important to be aware that it is an issue for everybody in the firm. So I just stay mindful of the fact that if we're not acting like SEAL Team 6, if we're not acting in a dynamic and nimble way, then we're going to get beaten somewhere down the road. So it's a lot of self-reflection about, how are we actually doing right now? How is the experience of our lowest least important client, because the experience of our, sort of basic, not top of the asset client, that's going to define how the firm really is. What's happening for the client who's getting the worst experience, kind of looking at things from through that lens. We just are in this is a kind of a hackneyed expression, but a culture of constant improvement. And, we really stress that, and we really try and look at what we're doing wrong frequently to make sure that we're improving. On that note, I know this is a little long-winded, but the firm has evolved every quarter and become a better firm. So we're a completely different firm than we were 5 years ago and than we were before that. And we'll continue with that evolution as we continue to grow.
Now hold on for a second. Todd just made a quick reference to SEAL Team 6. Now, I don't know what it means exactly to Todd. I didn't have a chance to ask him because we had a short time that we had to wrap up that interview. But here's my take on what SEAL Team 6 means, because I've actually said this within my company. I don't necessarily want the biggest company out there, but I want a team of people that are truly experts at what they do, that are able to serve our clients and serve their job function and connect together and collaborate, that are surgical in their ability to get things done. I've watched a TV show for a while called SEAL Team, and it really shows these people with their own personal problems come together for the mission that we're on, or that they're on. And I love that fact. I watch them they don't even have to say words. They all know what each other's thinking, and they know how to get things done. They all have their own jobs and responsibilities. And, are there things that get in the way? Yes. But, when things are really optimal, SEAL Team 6 really is about a team performing at its highest level. That's what it means to me. I don't know what you do to think about where your team's going, whether you want to be some other type of team or format, but I think that you should talk about that. Talk about what your dream ideal for the team is, so that people understand what's expected of them. I talk about this expertness inside our team, and we're here to serve you. But what is your team there to do? Are you clear about it? Back to Todd. I love all of this. I've got the tagline of this podcast. It's called Evolve or Die. So,
oh well, you should have told me that. I would have hit the points harder.
Well, what I've seen having hundreds of interviews with people just like you is that they are constantly looking and questioning their own thinking that allows them to go faster, lead better, and that's what keeps them ahead of the game, and they're ahead of their peers. And a lot of the companies that we talk to here have this similar thought. So my job is to connect the dots. So I really appreciate you being here, giving us your perspective, Todd, and really appreciate it.
Happy to do it. Remember, most people in this seat aren't just happy everything's fine kind of people. So I think it comes with the territory. But I appreciate you taking the time to do this, and love to do a follow-up or anything that works. Thanks a lot, Gene.
Let me wrap up here. I know Todd's listening in, but what I took away from this interview is that we must continue to evolve. The leader that we are today will be very different than the leader that you will be maybe next year. And as your company evolves, as you get more revenue, you scale up, all of these things create the pressure to change and shift. And it requires a mindset shift. You have to be able to think differently in order to act differently. And Todd's, sharing some of his concepts of how he sets goals and talking to the employees really is about evolution. So if you're, kind of hung up on where you're evolving next as a leader, what your next step is, my job is to help you get really clear about that. We have Fast Growth Boardroom. If you think you're a fit for that, we have founders getting together, hanging out, racing cars, doing some fun stuff. Plus, the leadership is really about you being the best you can be as a leader. Just check out fastgrowthboardroom.com. As always, lead with courage. We'll see you next time.